Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be looking at an interview with Paul Frazer Clarke.
Okay.
Now, Paul Frazer Clarke is a composer and producer
Right.
based in Perth, Australia.
Wow. Perth, Australia.
Yeah, and he had a really interesting interview, and we're going to be talking all about his latest album called Backstories, from a Soundtrack to Life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting about this is that he kind of had this strategic goal from the get-go.
Okay.
To have this music placed in film and TV and media.
Okay.
And potentially reach a whole new audience that way.
Yeah.
So that was sort of in the back of his mind when he was putting it all together.
So tell me about the album itself. What makes it so special?
Well, it's deeply personal. It's full of stories and influences that shaped him.
Right.
And
so it's like a musical autobiography?
Yeah, you could almost call it that.
Okay.
But again, he created it with that specific goal in mind.
Okay, so personal, but with a very strategic purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Did he share any particular tracks from the album that stand out to him?
He did the most emotional one for him, he said, was Keep You Hypnotized.
Okay.
And here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
This song is about his dislike of big government.
Wow. I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
You don't typically associate government critique with the most emotional track on an album.
Totally.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So clearly it comes from a place of deep conviction for him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is something he feels quite strongly about.
Did he elaborate on his views a little bit more?
He did. He talked about things like government overreach and propaganda.
Right.
And just this sort of erosion of individual freedom.
Yeah.
And he actually cites Pink Floyd as an influence for this particular song.
Wow.
So you can definitely hear those echoes of social commentary coming through in his music.
Yeah, I'm already sensing a theme here.
Yeah.
Personal experience woven into this bigger picture commentary.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Did he share any other insights from creating this album?
He did. He talked a lot about the collaborative approach he took. He worked with a ton of other musicians on this album.
Right.
And he just seems to really thrive in that kind of environment.
So he's not a solo artist in the studio. He likes that back and forth.
Yeah, he really feeds off that energy.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Did he elaborate on what that looks like in practice?
He did. He mentioned that he sees himself as both a mentor and a student in these collaborations.
Oh, interesting.
He learns from the younger musicians he works with, but he also enjoys sharing his knowledge and experience.
Right.
And kind of guiding them along the way.
Yeah.
So it seems like a really positive and enriching process for everyone involved.
It sounds like it. Did he talk about his overall approach to songwriting? Is there anything unique about the way he goes about it?
Well, he actually described his process as old school.
Okay.
He starts with building those foundational grooves.
Okay.
You know, he's a drummer at heart.
Right.
And that definitely comes through in his music.
It makes sense that his drumming background would shape how he writes music.
Yeah. Does he have any drumming heroes or influences that he looks up to?
He does. He specifically mentioned Billy Cobham.
Okay.
Steve Ferrone.
Yeah.
Stuart Copeland.
Wow.
Dennis Chambers and Keith Carlock.
Those are some heavy hitters.
They are all legendary drummers,
Mm-hmm.
known for their incredible groove and technical mastery.
Right.
So it makes sense that Clarke would prioritize those elements in his own compositions.
It makes a lot of sense, and it's really interesting to hear that he has that background and how it affects his music.
Definitely.
So we have the collaborative energy, we have the old school approach and this drumming influence. Anything else stand out in terms of his creative process?
Well, he used this really interesting analogy, actually, to describe how he pours his soul into the music.
Okay.
He compared it to a groundskeeper meticulously preparing a stadium for a big game.
Oh, wow.
Like that level of dedication and passion that goes into it.
That is a really powerful image.
Yeah.
You can really sense the care that he puts into his music.
Oh, it's not just technical. It's very much about infusing it with emotion and meaning.
Absolutely.
Did he share any personal reflections on what it was like to create something so deeply personal?
He did, and this is where it gets really interesting, because he actually admitted to feeling quite vulnerable when he first started working on this album.
Really? That's surprising considering how experienced he is as a musician.
Yeah.
What made him feel vulnerable?
Well, he knew that by putting himself out there, sharing these personal stories and experiences through music,
Yeah.
he was opening himself up to criticism and judgment.
Right.
And it takes a lot of courage to be that open and honest in your art.
For sure.
And I think that's something that a lot of artists struggle with.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that vulnerability also adds a layer of authenticity to the music. You
Yeah.
can really feel the emotion and honesty in his work.
Yeah.
It's clear he's not afraid to share his heart and soul with the world.
Absolutely. And knowing that he was willing to be so vulnerable makes the music even more powerful. So we've talked a lot about the creative and the personal side of things.
Yeah.
Did he mention anything about the technical side of making this album?
He did. He talked about how the mastering process was particularly challenging for this album.
Okay.
Mastering is such a crucial step.
It is. That's where everything gets polished and prepped for release.
Exactly. It's that final stage.
What kind of challenges did he face?
Well, this was the first self-produced album he'd done since moving to Australia.
Okay.
So he had to learn a lot along the way.
Wow. So he was figuring things out as he went.
Yeah, he had to kind of figure out a lot of the technical aspects on his own.
Right.
Experimenting and fine-tuning until he got it right.
So he was wearing a lot of hats during this process.
He was.
That's really impressive. Did he mention any of the specific tools or techniques he used during mastering?
Well, he's all about consistency.
Okay.
So he uses the same software and sound libraries for both his personal work and his film and TV scoring.
Okay.
Logic Pro is his go-to composing tool.
Logic is a great program.
It is.
A lot of people use that.
Yeah, it's very popular.
Did he have any thoughts on other music technology? I'm curious about his take on auto-tune.
Oh, yeah.
It's a hot topic in the industry.
It is. He actually had a very balanced perspective on auto-tune.
Okay.
He doesn't necessarily disapprove of it, but he prefers to think of it as error correction.
Okay.
He emphasized that in today's music production world, a high level of accuracy and polish is expected.
Right. So it's more about achieving that technical perfection rather than drastically altering someone's voice.
Exactly.
That's a really interesting take on it.
Yeah.
What about music theory? Does he follow it strictly when composing?
He revealed that he doesn't rely heavily on music theory when writing.
Okay.
He prefers a freer, more intuitive approach.
Right.
Although he did admit to subconsciously applying theory when working out vocal harmonies.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So he trusts his ear and his instincts, but he also has that theoretical knowledge to back it up when needed.
Exactly. It's a good balance.
It sounded like a good balance. The interview touched on his past work as well. Did he share any interesting stories from previous projects?
He did. He mentioned working with Ron Wells in Fast Floor.
Okay.
And he's also got a background in the drum and bass genre.
Wow.
He even spent some time signed to MCA Music.
Really?
And collaborated with a label owned by the legendary DJ Carl Cox.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he created music under the name Earl Grey.
Wow.
Blending jazz, funk, drum, and bass electro, and more.
It sounds like he's not afraid to experiment and push boundaries.
He's not. He's got a very eclectic style.
It's clear that he has a wide range of influences and experiences to draw on.
Definitely.
Did he talk about the current state of the music industry? I'd love to hear his thoughts on how things have changed, especially with the rise of digital platforms and streaming services.
He did, and he actually expressed some concern about the way people value music today.
Really?
Yeah, he feels that the respect for the craft has declined.
Okay.
Especially with the accessibility of music production technology through the internet.
That's an interesting point. It's so easy for anyone to call themselves a producer or musician now, regardless of skill level.
Right, exactly. And I think that's part of what he's getting at.
Do you think that's led to a devaluation of music as an art form?
I think Clarke seems to think so.
Okay.
He believes that the internet has contributed to a more disposable attitude towards music.
Right. People don't necessarily savor albums in the same way they used to.
Exactly.
That's a shame because there's something really special about connecting with a full piece of music, like listening to an entire album and letting it kind of wash over you.
Absolutely.
Did he touch on how this shift has impacted musicians and their ability to make a living?
He did, and he believes this decline in music appreciation has made it even harder for talented musicians to earn a decent income.
Right.
It's not just about the closure of live venues.
Yeah.
It's about a fundamental shift in how people consume and value music.
He makes a really good point. The ease of access to music has definitely had an impact on the industry. Did he share any thoughts on how musicians can adapt to this changing landscape?
Well, he focused on the importance of professionalism and adaptability.
Okay.
Especially when working on collaborative projects like film and television scoring.
Right.
He stressed the need to respect the director's vision.
Yeah.
Even if it means making changes to your original ideas.
So it's about finding that balance between artistic integrity and the practical demands of the industry.
Exactly.
Did he elaborate on any specific experiences he's had with navigating those collaborative relationships?
He mentioned that receiving feedback and making changes can sometimes be challenging.
Right.
but he's learned to approach it with a professional mindset.
Okay.
He understands that the director ultimately has the final say.
Right.
And he's willing to work within those constraints.
That makes sense. It's about being a team player and understanding the bigger picture. Did he express any optimism about the future of music despite the challenges he sees?
He did. He believes that if big government continues to be a dominant force in the political landscape, creative pursuits will become even more valuable.
Interesting.
People will seek solace, inspiration, and beauty in art as a way to cope with the challenges of the world.
That's a really hopeful perspective.
It is.
Despite the challenges he sees, he still believes in the power of art to uplift and inspire.
Definitely.
What else did he have to say about the future of music? What are his hopes for the industry?
Well, he's hoping for a resurgence of authentic music experiences.
Okay.
A decline in the popularity of reality TV.
Interesting.
And a move away from the oversaturation of beat makers.
Okay.
He believes these trends are fleeting.
Yeah.
And that people will eventually crave genuine, heartfelt music.
I hope he's right. There's something really magical about experiencing live music.
Yeah.
Connecting with the artists and feeling the energy of the crowd.
Totally.
It's an experience that can't be replicated digitally.
It can't. Yeah, it really is. And it does feel like there's this growing appreciation for authenticity and realness.
It does.
You know, people are craving connection and meaning, and music can be such a powerful conduit for those things.
For sure. Did he have any final thoughts or shout-outs before wrapping up the interview?
He did. He gave a shout-out to Patrick Kerr at Artisan Music, where the album was recorded and mixed.
Okay.
Kerr is also Clarke's business partner in Radio Circus.
Oh, cool.
So it's nice, you know, even within a competitive industry,
Yeah.
there's still that collaboration and support.
I love that it's always inspiring to see artists supporting each other.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've learned about Paul Frazer Clarke's musical journey,
Yeah.
his approach to songwriting, his thoughts on the music industry, and his hopes for the future.
Absolutely.
It's been a really fascinating glimpse into the mind of a talented and thoughtful artist.
It has. We've heard about his, you know, old school approach to crafting music.
Yeah.
That dedication to those foundational grooves.
Right.
And how his background as a drummer really shines through in his compositions.
It really does.
And of course, we can't forget that deeply personal element.
Yeah.
The soul that he pours into his music.
Absolutely.
Making it so much more than just sounds.
Right. And we explored that collaborative spirit that drives his work.
Yeah.
The vulnerability that he embraces as an artist. Mm. And his perspective on the use of technology in music like autotune.
Right.
It's clear that he's not afraid to challenge conventions and express his unique artistic vision.
He's not. And what I found particularly compelling was his perspective on the current state of the music industry.
Yeah.
He raises some really important questions about how we value and consume music in the digital age.
He does.
It's a conversation worth having.
It is.
Especially for those of us who care deeply about the future of music.
I agree. His observations about the decline in music appreciation and the challenges that musicians face today are definitely food for thought.
They are.
But despite those challenges, he remains optimistic about the power of creativity to connect people and bring meaning to our lives.
Yeah, his hope for a resurgence of authentic music experiences, a decline in the allure of these fleeting trends, and the enduring power of music to offer solace and inspiration in a world increasingly dominated by big government.
Right.
It's quite inspiring.
It is. It leaves you feeling hopeful about the future of music.
Definitely.
So for you listening out there, what stands out to you from this deep dive? What resonated with you the most?
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Do you share Clarke's concerns about the state of the music industry?
What do you think the future holds for music and those who create it?
We encourage you to check out Paul Frazer Clarke's music for yourself.
Yeah.
Listen to Backstories from a Soundtrack to Life.
Experience those stories woven into the music.
Yeah, and see if you can hear the influences that we've been discussing today.
And let us know your thoughts.
Yeah.
Share your reactions, your favorite tracks, anything that sparked your interest.
Absolutely.
We'd love to hear your perspectives on this fascinating artist.
Yeah.
And the thought-provoking ideas he's brought to light. Until next time, keep exploring, keep listening, and keep diving deep.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Absolutely can. And, you know, it does feel like there's this growing appreciation for authenticity and realness.
Yeah, definitely.
People are craving connection and meaning.
For sure.
And music can be such a powerful way to get there.
It can be. Did he have any final thoughts or shout-outs before wrapping up?
You know, he gave a shout-out to Patrick Kerr at Artisan Music.
Okay.
That's where the album was recorded and mixed.
Gotcha.
And Kerr is also Clarke's business partner in Radio Circus.
Oh, very cool. So they go way back.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really nice to see that, you know, even in a competitive industry.
Absolutely.
There's still that collaboration and support.
It's really inspiring to see artists supporting each other like that.
For sure.
Well, we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
We've learned about Paul Frazer Clarke's musical journey.
Yeah, his background.
His approach to songwriting, what he thinks about the music industry these days.
His hopes for the future.
His hopes for the future, yeah. It's been a really fascinating look into the mind of a talented and thoughtful artist.
Absolutely. And I think what's really stood out to me is, you know, this old school approach,
yeah,
this dedication to those foundational grooves.
And his background as a drummer, it really comes through in his music.
Really shines through. And of course, that deeply personal element.
Yeah, the soul.
That soul that he puts into everything.
Making it more than just sounds.
Way more. We also talked about that collaborative spirit.
We did.
You know, that really seems to drive his work.
Yeah.
The vulnerability he embraces.
Mm-hmm.
And his really interesting perspective on using technology like autotune.
Right.
In music, it's clear he's not afraid to challenge conventions.
Definitely not. And express his own unique vision.
Yeah, I think his perspective on the current state of the music industry is super interesting.
It is. He brings up some really important questions.
Yeah.
About how we value and consume music in today's world.
It's a conversation we need to be having. Absolutely. Especially if we care about the future of music.
I agree. His observations about, you know, this decline in music appreciation.
Yeah.
And how difficult that is for musicians today.
Yeah, the challenges they face.
Really got me thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But what's so cool is that despite all that,
yeah,
he's still optimistic.
He is.
About the power of creativity.
Yeah, about connecting with people and bringing meaning to our lives.
Exactly. And his hope for that resurgence of authentic music experiences.
Yeah, a move away from these fleeting trends.
Yes, and the power of music to bring comfort.
And inspiration.
And inspiration in a world that can feel pretty overwhelming sometimes.
In a world increasingly dominated by big government. Yeah, it's a powerful message.
It is. It's inspiring, and it leaves me feeling hopeful about the future of music. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are your takeaways?
What stood out to you?
What resonated with you the most about Paul Frazer Clarke?
Did anything really stick with you?
Do you share any of his concerns about the state of the music industry today?
What do you think the future holds for music?
And the artists who create it?
Yeah, think about that.
We encourage you to check out Paul Frazer Clarke's music yourself.
Definitely give Backstories from a Soundtrack to Life a listen.
Yeah, experience those stories woven into the music.
See if you can hear the influences that we talked about.
And let us know what you think.
Yeah, share your reactions, your favorite tracks, anything that grabbed you.
Anything that sparked your interest. We want to hear your perspective.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
On this really interesting artist.
And his thought-provoking ideas.
So until next time.
Keep exploring, keep listening, and keep diving deep.
Thanks for listening, everyone.